With our fabric mostly done, we can focus on the trim and start to plan things out. And so in this episode, we will see how we can create custom shapes like sequins, loops, seams, and so on. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, our fabric is not done. It's all flat and gray and we can barely see the ornaments. That's true, but remember that at this stage of the project, we're still working on the height, and we won't be dealing with the color or the roughness until it's done. So we first need to finish this properly, and right now it means tackling the trim. Now, there's a lot going on here, and it may feel a bit overwhelming, like, how am I going to make all this? And the key here, again, is to break it down into its different parts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and each row is just made out of a few elements. So the hem here, for example, is just a series of threads. Then we have a sequin, then a loop, then these radial ornaments, which in turn can be broken down into 1, 2, 3 gemstones. You get the idea. One way we could approach this is by creating each individual piece first, and the idea is really to focus on small, simple tasks and not letting ourselves get distracted or discouraged by the broader picture. So let's get on with it. I'm going to take that space here above our main connection and start assembling the different elements we need. The first element is that seam here, and to get this look, we could simply take a thread and tile it vertically. We already have one that we can reuse, so let me just grab that output. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but I would still like to keep that connection around just to have it close at hand. What I could do is pin it using a dot node. It's a small tool that helps keeping your graph clean by rerouting connections. There are different ways you can add it. You could simply click on it and dock your connection. It also works with a quick search just by typing it dot. But there's a simpler way. If you press Alt while hovering over a connection, you see that we have this yellow dot that follows my cursor. And if I click, it just adds it automatically. And now I can move it around to reorganize things. If I click on it and hold Alt again, I can also group the connections that share the same origin. Very useful. And to remove a dot, you just press backspace like any other node. You can do more with the dot node, but let's keep that for later. Right now, all I want is to pin the output of the threads somewhere up here, because this is where I'm going to create all the trim elements. So with the connection still attached to my cursor, I'm just going to hit Alt, and there we go. All right, I don't think we need to tweak this thread too much. I will maybe narrow it a little with a Transform 2D, holding Control to resize from the middle, and that's it. Now, what do we have next? Let's take a look at the reference. Okay, we have this row of sequins. That's actually a good exercise. If you've been following this course so far, you should be able to make one sequin by yourself. So pause the video, have a good look at the reference, and give it a try. All right, let's do it together. A sequin is basically just a small disc of plastic, so we can start with a shape and go for disc. This disc should have a hole in it to let a thread through. We can do that by duplicating that first disc, Control D, making it smaller, and subtracting it from the first disc. All right, then we have this interesting feature where the sequins get slightly tilted due to the overlap. See, this bit is higher than this bit. That's easy to make. We need to darken the grayscale value towards the bottom here. And to do that, I'm going to take another blend, put the sequin in the background, and subtract from it the part that I want to lower. I could use a shape for that and place it with a Transform 2D, but there's actually a better solution for this kind of use case. If you type in gradient, you see that we have this collection of grayscale gradients we can pick from, and I'm going to go with gradient axial, because this one comes with handles that just makes the placement easier. Now let's put it into place. And voila, we made ourselves a nice sequin shape. Next up are these looped threads. Now this is interesting because it brings us to circular operation in Substance Designer. There are a couple of nodes that let you revolve inputs or tile them in circle. There is, for example, the splatter circular. This one works like a tile generator. It takes a pattern and repeats it, but it does so in circles, so it comes with specific parameters for you to play with, like the radius, the amount of rings, and so on. Very useful node for ornaments. We'll come back to it later. Now, if you want to bend an input into a circle, which is our case, there are other options, but let's just mention the main one, the shape mapper. This one works a little like a splatter circular, but if you reduce the amount to 1, it will actually distort the input like so. Now to get the desired look, we could simply play with another transform until we have something that works. Alright, so we have the thread, the sequin, the loop, and we should take a moment to place and assemble all this before we tackle the radial ornaments. Let's start with the thread. We need to find a way to repeat it on one axis so that we get some sort of line. How could we do that? Your first impulse might be to use a tile generator or a tile sampler, and it could definitely work. But I would say it would maybe be an overkill. We can get a good enough result using only Transform 2D. Let me show you how. We start by taking another transform and rotating our thread 90 degrees. We can do that using the handles, remember holding Shift, or simply by pressing that 90 button here. Now we could tile it right now simply by hitting repeatedly this divide by 2 button. But the problem is, if we do that, it leaves us with these gaps between each thread, and it's not exactly the kind of look we are aiming for. We want something that is tight. So to fill these gaps, here's a neat trick we can do. We're going to take that thread and offset it vertically by going to this X slider here and typing in 0.5. And you see that if I display the tiling in the 2D view by pressing spacebar and now move the thread around, it keeps tiling perfectly. And that's because we applied a safe rotation to it. Now, if I were to rotate it manually, see, the seam instantly shows up. All right, let me undo all that. Now we're going to take that offset thread and hook it to a blend, then create a duplicate of it, remove the offset, and put that in the foreground. This will just allow us to fill that gap I was mentioning. If I change the blending mode to max, see? Now I have a nice continuous line of threads. It may even be too uniform, so I'm just going to tweak the middle thread to make it more varied. Keeping an eye on the tile view always. Okay, now let's zoom back on our texture and disable the tiling. So at this point, we only have 2.5 threads in our 1-to-1 square. It's clearly not enough, so it's time to repeat all this. Let's add another transform and start dividing this a bunch of time. Like 5, 6 maybe. Okay, but we have a problem here. The threads tile vertically alright, but they also tile horizontally. And we don't want that. We only want one line. Being able to control how an image tiles is critical in Substance Designer. And since tiling is part of the base parameters present in each node, we should make a quick detour into these parameters and the inheritance system behind it.